Hello and welcome to the FOXPEDITION podcast. I'm Inga and my guest today is Alex, and we want to talk about counter espionage and all the theories that come with that, like the broken window theory, like ration choice, and the mice theory. So, Alex, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, many thanks for having me on your podcast. I followed many of your podcasts and caught up some really good ones recently. So I'm Alex Bomberg. I live in the UK and I am the CEO. Well, actually, no, I'm the chairman now of Intelligent UK Holdings Limited group of companies. We're a very busy group of companies. We deal with a whole wide range of subjects from espionage, investigations, intelligence to close protection, and everything else in between. So we work with our clients and provide pretty much a holistic service. And I've been in the industry now I've started my first company in 2002, so 22 years ago. So got a lot of experience on the ground and obviously in running companies across Europe and the world.
So that sounds very interesting. So yeah, today we would just like to deep dive into espionage, or as deep as we can dive in it in the next half hour. So how are you encountering espionage? How do you detect it? What do you do against it?
Well, espionage is one of those really weird subjects because either a company comes to us knowing that they've had a serious issue, a data breach or a theft, or maybe even like a member of staff inside a threat problem, or they don't know that they've had a problem at all and they're coming to us because they want to have a more secure regime within the company, maybe part of their organizational resilience and their risk management. They want to look at how they can fortify that side of the company. Because espionage is one of those things that it's a bit of a dirty word, really, because people perceive the threat of espionage is it will never happen to them. But in reality, espionage happens in every walk of life. It happens in the food industry. It happens in sport. It's actually quite prevalent in sport, believe it or not, and obviously in banking and mainstream business. So espionage is everywhere, and it always has been. Now, obviously the last 25 years since the advent of the internet and email, it's got quite complicated. Before, it was very much surveillance based and it was about people. Now it's not. It's about people and systems, computer systems, and also the Internet of Things, of course, because we're getting more and more of a connected society. When I started my own company in 2002, we didn't have wearable technology like we have today. And a lot of I'm in my early 50s now, and a lot of people in my generation still think a mobile phone is a mobile phone. They don't think it's a
Mhm.
computer because it's everything but a mobile phone, really, nowadays. A mobile phone is the last thing it is. It's really a computer, and people don't trust computers and mobile phones, or people of my generation don't trust them the same. If they received an email on their computer, they might think twice about opening it because they know about phishing emails and spoofing. But people will click away on their phone because they don't see it as the same type of device with the same threats. So obviously, espionage is a massively changing field, and with the advent of AI, becoming even more so, becoming very,
Mhm.
very scary. Especially AI combined with really good social engineering is very difficult. Um, there
Definitely.
was there was a recent case of a company that had been defrauded because one of their senior staff members attended an online meeting with people he thought were his CEOs and C-suite, and
Wow.
he released a payment based on that call. I don't know if it was a Teams call or a Zoom call, but it was a face-to-face meeting online. And that was AI fraud.
That's
So,
crazy.
if you've got a little bit of information, which I'm going to talk a little bit now about how targeting's done and some of the psychology behind it, which goes back 40, 50, 60 years, some of the psychology behind espionage, that hasn't changed. Because at the end of the day, people haven't changed. And you could still get
Good.
people to give you information, and that's pretty much how espionage works. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, is there anything particular that you would like to sort of ask about espionage?
Yes, I would like to talk about the theories that you didn't mention yet, but you
Yep.
said that espionage is very, very old topic and people didn't change much. So theories like broken window, for example, let's start with that. What does it have to do with espionage? And can you maybe
Cool.
tell us a little bit about this theory in general?
Yeah. So broken window theory is. I mean, none of these theories are particularly old. I think the oldest theory is the mice theory that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But broken window theory is a theory that if you have a building and it's not looked after, um, and it will attract crime and it will attract wrongdoing. So in essence, that's broken window theory. So if you took that into, you could have that as an office block, which is the CCTV and the lighting's not working properly. So you end up with drug dealers in the car park, or your staff getting assaulted in the car park. So that's you know that's broken window theory from an external point of view. But from an internal point of view, broken window theory, where rules break down, or that there was no rules at all, and things just have managed to get lost in translation in the workplace. Because a lot of people don't want to put processes in place, security processes in place, because they think it's going to be a hindrance. They don't see security as something that everyone should do as part of their job. They see it as a hindrance. So within an office place, it could be the breakdown of procedures, and people propping fire exits open to go and smoke outside the building. We see a lot of that, especially when smoking got banned. People were doing that quite a lot. So that's how broken window theory fits into espionage. But it also fits into security generally. If you have a breakdown in the layers of security, then of course you start moving on to Swiss cheese theory, which was founded by a guy called James Reason. And the Swiss cheese theory was actually set up originally about accidents and about how accidents are caused, the reasons behind accidents. And basically, the Swiss cheese model is that each layer of Swiss cheese, if you cut a block of Swiss cheese and line it up, some of the holes will align. So if you take a slice of Swiss cheese as a mitigation measure, if that mitigation measure fails, then the threat passes through. So the whole point of for instance, Swiss cheese theory is to put in strong mitigation measures and a series of them, because you can take the Swiss cheese theory and you can apply it to any, not just espionage, but you can apply it to any modern terrorist event, like the Manchester Arena bombing. The layers of the Swiss cheese there would be lack of CCTV coverage, lack of training, um, lack of a good response. The fact that it was although the event was well policed, it was the actual attack took place in a grey area. So you can apply Swiss cheese theory to many things. And I think as security professionals, it's up to us to try and understand some of the academic theories behind what we do. Because, especially if you're ex-army or ex-police, you kind of know all this stuff, but you don't necessarily know the theories behind it. And that was one of my sort of biggest problems. I've been in the security industry 15 years. COVID hit. I started doing more webinars and started learning, actually. So I did 4 level 5 courses during COVID, and I'm okay. I'm ex-army, but I'm not an academic person. I'm somebody who got expelled from school at 15 years old. So school and learning is not something that I was interested in doing. But I love security, and I'm somebody that always has to ask questions. So this is why I love theories. So the theories behind espionage, go back a long time. The psychology of espionage goes back a long time. One of my favourite um, parts of espionage is what they call mice. So that's money, ideology, cohesion, cohesion, and ego. So money. This is the drivers of the triggers for people. So if you take, it was worked out by the Russians actually, that if you take the average individual, we've all got buttons that, if pressed correctly, we will give up our secrets. So obviously money is quite an easy one. Everybody's got a price, they say. So that's quite an easy one. When you're targeting a company for information, whether you want to steal once or whether you want to go in and out a number of times, what you'll tend to do is you'll tend to look at an easy target within that company. And there's lots of case studies in relation to this type of attack. We all know, about social engineering, what social engineering is. It's about getting information out of the right person by feeding them positive signs. So a really good example that I always like to use about this type of case, and it's probably one of the, normally with acts of espionage, you never ever hear about them because these things are settled outside of court. It's not good for either party. If a company has a data breach, I know that there are laws now in the EU where you have to report data breaches, but 20 years ago, 10 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Is there any real life story you would like to share? Like, is there something where you say, okay, that happened in real life and was a major threat to companies in terms of espionage?
So my favourite story for espionage, recent case history, about 15 years, maybe even towards 20 years old now, which involves the large accountancy firm KPMG. And they were being investigated as part of a larger case by a UK intelligence-based company. So this UK company, they looked at the KPMG office that was dealing with the information, and they were based in Bermuda. So what they did is they took a look at all their staff and profiled them, and they looked to see who was the most vulnerable person there, who could they get the information from, and they found a young 40-odd-year-old accountant, a young male guy who was a bit of a loner, bit of a virgin, had no friends, had lunch on his own every day. So they decided to target this gentleman. And the way they did it was very clever. They profiled him, they found out what his interests were. And one day they approached him. And the way they did it was they kept eating in the same, a certain gentleman from this intelligence firm kept eating in the same restaurant as the accountant, and befriended him, sat at the next table as him, having seen him for a few days running, befriended him, started talking about the football. He knew which team he'd supported because he found the information out via social media, via their intelligence. And then he basically started to become a friend with this guy. And within a short period of time, maybe a couple of weeks, confessed to the guy actually that he wasn't who he thought he was, and that he led a different lifestyle, and that he was actually an intelligence officer for British Secret Service. And could he help his country gain some information on an important case they were dealing with? Now, this accountant, this was the most exciting thing that ever happened to him. He was somebody who, even just meeting somebody for lunch was an important thing for him as part of his, not part of his normal day. So, the fact that he had a new friend, and all of a sudden this new friend turned out to be a spy, he was really impressed with that. And of course, being somebody impressionable like this, he really wanted to help his country. He thought, helping Great Britain, what more could you do? So
Mm-hmm.
over a course of days and weeks, he provided the intelligence officer with the information. And a few weeks later, he received a Rolex watch. And on the back of the Rolex watch, it said, "Thank you very much for your help," from the British Secret Service. And he thought no more of it. And the intelligence company, they did their investigation and they moved on to other work. And then a few months later, the case file that they were dealing with ended up on the front desk of a KPMG office in the US. And that's when all hell broke loose. And we wouldn't know anything about this case if that hadn't become public knowledge. And I believe that was settled out, out of court, but it was public. It became public knowledge. That's how we're aware of it. And this is the problem with espionage cases, because most of them get settled before we know anything about it. You would never ever know that these things happen. We hear of the odd case of bugging. Someone's placed a listening device in a restaurant. We hear things like that, or office. Those things are even those things are pretty rare in this day and age. We've been involved in debugging operations for 20 odd years, and you very rarely find a device, because it is rare, but it's obviously good practice to do that sort of thing. So when people think about espionage, they don't think of it will ever happen to them. It never happens in their sector, and that's one of the major problems. And with social engineering, with the way the social engineering is going now, and the amount of information that people put out on social media themselves, it's becoming easier for people to target individuals. You see a lot of issues on LinkedIn where fake profiles come up, or fake jobs come up. What LinkedIn's like. You've got a great profile on LinkedIn, and people want to share their contacts on LinkedIn. That's kind of the whole point of it. But I think what people put on social media, or not just on social media, but also what companies put out as part of their everyday work, they don't realise how maybe that information can be used. I mean, social engineering wise, for example, if you ring up a large company and you speak to the PA of the CEO or the COO or the chief financial officer, and they say, "Oh, sorry, James is not in this week. He's in the Bahamas. He's going to be away a couple of weeks. Please email him when he comes back." Actually, you've got a lot of information there. If you want to commit supply chain fraud, you've got a lot of information there. You could create an invoice, send it to the company, harass the PA, and say, look, James told me he would pay this before he went on holiday. I know he's gone to the Bahamas for 2 weeks, but he said this would be paid. So you put pressure on the company. They know that you've already got some information that you probably wouldn't have unless you had spoken to James and dealt with James. And then all of a sudden you end up committing fraud. And that's how these things happen. Sometimes people give out information as part of their normal daily job, and they don't realise necessarily the importance of that. And it goes the same with individuals in companies who are dealing with sensitive information. We've done work historically with Formula One teams where they're dealing with very, very high tech information, aerospace information, and they just think, a lot of people there think, oh, we're running a sports team, but you're not. You're using science to create an end product which could end up being used in a vehicle, a motor car, or in a jet fighter, because that's what a Formula One car is. It's an upside down fighter plane in reality. And a lot of people don't realise where their technology can be used. The fact that it can also be used in missiles and defence, that's one of the things. It's not just about being the winning team, although I think there's also lots of recent case studies of espionage having taken place in sports as well, especially in Formula One.
You talked about cybersecurity in the beginning, and you said these cases are like from 15 years ago. But still, of course, cybersecurity is getting more and more important, and everything will be connected with the internet. So it's very important to have a good cybersecurity system in place. But I think what you said, what works 15 years ago is still working today. So sometimes people approach us and say, hey, can you do cybersecurity for us? Do you know anything about firewalls and stuff? And I'm like, not really. That's not really my main business. But what I can tell you is how your employees should react to outstanders. Like, you can have the best cybersecurity system, but if your employees go out to a bar, see a beautiful woman, and tell them everything they know about the company, that would be a major problem. Then you can have really strong passwords and really good firewall and antivirus systems and whatever. But if you have these people, yeah, it's really, really difficult to do counter espionage then.
Yeah, the weakest point is people. That's what I always try and get across. Companies spend millions and millions of pounds on cyber security, but they don't spend a tenth of that on physical security. And your physical security guards are normally the lowest paid people in the building, including the cleaners. In fact, very often their contracts and they're managed via facilities management, who don't really wear a security hat at all, and it's siloed into that area. Whereas really a proper holistic, joined up view is that everybody in the company is responsible for security, and security should, as I said at the beginning, security should be part of everyone's function, should be part of everyone's job, no matter what they do. Same with the same with improving your job. There's a Japanese art, the art of Kaizen, which is it's about doing your job. That's the first job you have at work, doing your job. Your second job is making your job better. So I very much believe in that. And when we go into companies and talk to them about their security, they always think they've got the best security in the world. But if you create really good security and make it complex for individuals to actually do their job, it becomes a hindrance. Then they don't do it. And that's when Swiss cheese theory comes back in, broken window theory comes back in, because people then start to not bother. You can put a shredder across the other side of the room. People aren't going to get up and shred things. I mean, I know people print off a lot less stuff these days. People do print off a lot less stuff than they used to. But it's the same with changing passwords. It's people don't do it, and people are lazy. But I'm going to bring another theory. We're going to bring another theory in now. Nudge theory. Nudge theory. So nudge theory is a very interesting theory. And actually quite a few governments now have nudge departments where they look at how they can get. So nudging is getting somebody to do stuff. It's social engineering again. It's getting somebody to do stuff without asking them to. So or without really telling them to. For instance, you could put a notice in a bathroom about the spreading of germs above the sink, which is going to make somebody wash their hands. That's nudge theory. So nudge theory is lots of. If people are interested in this, Google it, because nudge theory is brilliant. If you can get your workforce to do something in security, take a little bit more ownership, that's really where good holistic security starts. And that's really what I've always preached about in security. I'm very, very passionate about it, and I think that if you can get somebody to when I give a lecture or a talk to a company or even to a group of security professionals, I always say if you can get a couple of takeaways where somebody's left that lecture or that presentation and gone, do you know what, actually I understand that now, and I understand that If I see somebody around my building that's not wearing a lanyard, I'm going to ask them who they are. Can I help you? Um, a lot of companies don't do that sort of thing. They find it difficult because of the culture of the organization. We did a data breach inquiry a few years ago, a government data breach inquiry, and the starting point of data security within the organization was that they were all civil servants, so everybody should have access to everything. There wasn't any siloed access. There wasn't any, there wasn't any proper cutoff points. Even though, there most definitely should have been. The document protection levels within the government are there, so they should have been properly used. But the data breach actually happened not within the group of people that we were investigating, but within delegated access. So one of those parties who had that information, their emails was actually opened by a series of PAs because they were very, very busy individuals. They had 3 PAs working for them, which is not uncommon in government. And that's where the data breach occurred. So things like delegated access, again, really, really important, and important to close loops. If people don't need access to certain pieces of information, then don't give it to them. I know that we have got a lot better with data protection because of GDPR, but since COVID, GDPR has pretty much gone out the window. It doesn't seem to be as important to companies, but protecting data again, it goes back to what I said before about people understanding the value of the data that they're actually handling, and how if that fell into the wrong hands, how there could be serious consequences to the company. Because when an organization has a data breach or has a espionage attack, it has massive knock-on effects, huge knock-on effects. It has effects to the team, to the morale of the team who are personally affected, especially if it's been something like an insider threat breach, where one of their colleagues has deliberately, maliciously gone out of their way to hand that information, or not always deliberately. Actually, there are non-malicious insider threat events, but with the malicious events, that has a massive effect on the company. The morale of the other staff is really, really important, because that affects productivity, it affects bottom line, it affects retention, it affects recruitment, and of course the reputation of the company. If everybody knows that the company's had an espionage event, are they going to be able to attract the right talent in the future? Are they going to have the money to attract the right talent, especially if they've been, if they've got lots of law cases going on, or they're being fined by regulatory bodies because they've had a breach? They're not necessarily going to have the funds to attract the talent, and the share price might go down. So there's lots of negative press because of espionage. It's a huge, huge thing. So people need to sort of try and understand the espionage threat a little bit more, because it is there. It's relevant.
Thank you very much, Alex, for these valuable insights. So we're coming to the end of the podcast. Is there anything you want to sum up as a last statement, I would say?
Sure. So if you want to counter espionage within your organization, or you want to learn more, you can get in touch with people like myself, or you can do research. One thing I would say is always question. One thing, a really good takeaway, finally, 2-factor authentication. If you don't have it on your devices, or you don't have it within your company, within your processes, it's really easy to set up. Don't pay big invoices without picking up the phone and making sure that it's okay, or without walking down the corridor and just getting things cleared. If you think something's suspicious, then put your hand up. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So really good. I think if there's one takeaway people can take from this little talk, then it's that really. question.
Thank you very much, Alex, for all of your insights. It was very interesting talking to you and also listening to you. So, yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this podcast. If you want to know anything more about Alex, I will link you his website to his company and also his private LinkedIn in the show notes. And there you'll also find information about me and my company. And yeah, if you have any question, just drop it in the comment section. And yeah, I hope that we stay in contact, Alex, because it was very, very interesting. And yes, have a nice day and see you soon.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.